Territory avoids Yellowstone's biggest problem with its first major death. There's a major similarity between Territory and Yellowstone, and it seems like the Netflix series made a concerted effort to fix a common criticism of Taylor Sheridan's Western. Since its premiere in 2018, Yellowstone has become one of the world's biggest shows, regarded for its mix of soap opera and neo-Western elements. With that in mind, it's no surprise that Netflix would take a crack at a show with a notably similar premise, though set in a different region of the world, allowing for a variation in tone and aesthetic. Territory and Yellowstone similarities are common, but one stands out. The Territory cast plays a huge role in establishing a candid setting for Marianne Station in the Northern Territory of Australia, but there are also notable archetypal similarities between their characters and the leads from Yellowstone. The Lawson family and the Dutton family are led in some capacity by aging patriarchs, Colin Lawson and John Dutton. Both fathers have a son that they absolutely detest, Graham Lawson and Jamie Dutton. Importantly, both fathers also have golden boy sons who play the most active role in the ranch, Daniel Lawson and Lee Dutton. Neither lasts very long. In both Territory and Yellowstone, the death of the golden boy son is the catalyst for the show's events. In Territory, Colin Lawson has already passed on leadership to his son Daniel, and the position is left vacant without a clear successor. In Yellowstone, John Dutton still runs the ranch, but Lee Dutton is undoubtedly the ideal candidate for the position and has seemingly been preparing for it his entire life. With Lee Dutton dying in the opening episodes, John is left with 3 children who all have talents, but none of whom are quite right. By the time the show starts, Colin Lawson is shown to be out of touch with the cattle business and can't return to leadership. This puts the Lawsons and Marianne Station into a more pressing, immediate bind as vultures are circling their land, and there's no one ideal to step up. Similarly to Case Dutton, who is the prodigal son and potential ideal candidate in Yellowstone, Colin wants Marshall Lawson to take Daniel's place, but the grandson has no interest. Graham and Jamie are the sons who want the job, but their fathers don't see them fit. Something that's been commonly noted as a critique of Yellowstone is that after Lee's death, he's barely ever mentioned in the series again. He appears in Case's visions in Season 4, but that's his only cameo, and he rarely even plays a significant role in flashbacks from the Dutton siblings' childhoods. John Dutton warns his son early in Season 1, but everyone just seems to get over it very quickly. For such an important, game-changing event, Yellowstone treats the matter simply as a plot device and not an emotional touchstone for the show's characters. To be fair, no one aside from Colin really seems to mourn the loss of Daniel Lawson for very long, though that contributes to the show's narrative in a specific way. It's important that Daniel wasn't really the best or most loyal guy, contrasting Colin's rose-tinted perception of his 2 sons. Lee Dutton, on the other hand, actually seemed to be the most level-headed of the Dutton children, making it rather surprising that he wasn't more beloved. While no one is really mourning Daniel Lawson, Territory cleverly uses his death beyond just the original event. Rather than just killing him off to create the initial succession conflict, the Netflix series establishes a mystery surrounding his death. It's revealed in episode 1 that his horse is missing, and there continues to be some intrigue surrounding the white steed and its saddle, until episode 4 shows the actual nature of Daniel's fate in a flashback scene. The final moment of Territory Season 1 ending is still about Daniel Lawson, proving that his death will have a long-lasting effect on the show. If Territory is renewed for Season 2, it will likely explore the fallout between Colin and Emily, as the Lawson patriarch discovers the true events behind his son's death. Territory has a long way to go before it can compete with Yellowstone, But making its first major death a meaningful part of the overarching narrative is a great step. In the sprawling wilderness of territory, the vast new frontier that pushes beyond the rugged mountain range of Yellowstone, the promise of peace and natural beauty were the hallmarks of its establishment. The untamed beauty was seen as an escape from the harsh realities of the modern world. The rugged peaks, thick forests, and rushing rivers stood like towering sentinels, protecting a world of untouched wilderness. It was a sanctuary, a space for those seeking to reconnect with the land and leave behind the troubles of their past. But within this paradise, a storm was quietly brewing, a storm that territory seemed to avoid, at least for now. The whispers of Yellowstone's biggest problem, the one no one dared to talk about for fear it might spread like wildfire, had begun to echo in the quiet corners of territory. It was the problem that had plagued Yellowstone for years. The first major death in the park. The kind of death that couldn't be swept under the rug. A fatality that shattered the illusion of safety, where the thrill of adventure collided headfirst with the harsh reality of the wild. Yellowstone had long been known for its perilous beauty, its wild creatures, unpredictable weather, and treacherous terrain. It was a paradise for those daring enough to immerse themselves in its raw magnificence, but one that came with consequences for the unprepared. Over the years, accidents, injuries, and the occasional disappearance had been part of its dark allure. But when the first major death occurred on territory, it seemed to ignite a firestorm of fear and uncertainty. Unlike Yellowstone, territory was still in its infancy, its narrative unfolding like a blank canvas. But that fairy innocence, that untouched promise, was what protected it from the dark cloud looming over its neighbor. The first major death in territory would be a different kind of tragedy, one that would be handled with precision, with foresight, and perhaps most importantly, with a level of responsibility that Yellowstone had lacked in the past. And for all the freedom territory offered, there was something more powerful than untamed nature at play: human intervention. The first death came swiftly on a crisp autumn morning. A hiker named Lucas Wright, an experienced outdoorsman with a seasoned love for the wilderness, ventured deep into the northern section of territory. His trail was well marked, but the path he took was dangerous. A sudden avalanche, triggered by a series of small tremors deep beneath the Earth's surface, took him down within minutes, a situation no one could predict. The news of Lucas's death spread quickly. The weight of the tragedy felt deeply by those who had known him and those who had never heard his name. But the way territory responded to the death was strikingly different from Yellowstone's past approach to tragedy. There, the events surrounding deaths often became entangled in politics, funding disputes, lack of resources, and a public relations nightmare. But in territory, there was an immediate and proactive reaction. The authorities, guardians of the land, swiftly implemented new safety measures. Helicopter searches for those at risk, improved avalanche detection systems, and mandatory safety training for those entering the most hazardous areas of territory became the new norm. Unlike Yellowstone, where deaths had been met with hesitation and uncertainty, territory took accountability. The heart of the difference lay in the philosophy that had shaped the creation of territory. It wasn't about embracing the wilderness as an untamed force that could not be tamed, but about merging the natural world with human intellect. A careful balance between nature's raw power and humanity's ability to adapt. Territory was created with the understanding that, while people were welcome to roam its lands, they needed to be mindful of the risks involved and the resources at their disposal.